رب العالمين بائر الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على البشير النذير السراج المنير سيدنا ونبينا وشفيئنا الخاتم لما سبق والفاتح لمن غلق المؤلن الحق بالحق أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل عليه وعلى أهل بيته مظاهر جمالك وجلالك الذين كلامهم نور وأمرهم رشد ووصيتهم التقوى وفعلهم الخير وعادتهم الإحسان. أما بعد، صدق الله تعالى حيث يقول وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. صلوات. The verse I just quoted now, Surah 3, verse 143, it states, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَاءِ وَالضَّرَاءِ. They are those who donate in prosperity and in adversity. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. And they control their anger. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. And they pardon others. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the good doers. So today I want to speak about an energy which can become dark and can consume one's soul, such to the extent people may act out of their normal characteristic. This energy is, of course, anger. Anger, when uncontrolled and not restricted, can control a person to the extent it can make them do things that they would not ordinarily do. Some people, due to their anger, can go into uncontrolled rages of fits, where it can lead them to even harming or killing someone. And such is the danger of uncontrolled anger. It can make people act, quote unquote, irrationally. And this rage reminds me of the story of Abu Lahab in the Quran, because of the Arabic in the surah. It's very descriptive and very vivid. The surah goes, as you all know, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab, ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab, sayasla naran dhata lahab, wa imra'atuhu hammalatal hatab, fi jidha hablum min masad. So the surah says, may the hands of Abu Lahab perish and he himself perish. Neither ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab, neither will his wealth nor his worldly gains benefit him. Sayasla naran dhata lahab, he will burn in a flaming fire. Wamra'atuhu hammalatal hatab, and his wife will be the carrier of the wood of the kindling which he will burn from, and around her neck will be a rope of palm fiber. So in this surah, just imagine yourself in the place of Abu Lahab, and the wife and his wife represent your anger in moments of rage. This can show you how self-destructive, uncontrolled anger can be. That in times of anger, you can be burning in a flaming fire. And the kindling which actually increases the fire is your own self, is your own soul, is your own nafs. And from this surah, we can confidently presume that Abu Lahab's wife would have been one of the most closest people to him at that time. But even she was aggravating the fire and increasing it. Here in the surah, the wife could represent your ego, which is fueling you and egging you on to continue to hurt something or someone, or break something, for example, when you're in your moment of anger. And in these moments, you can become your own worst enemy. You can become your own worst enemy by letting your anger consume you and let it control your actions, such that we cause ourselves to perish by our very own hands, like the first verse in the surah explains. And this is the parallel I want to draw from the surah and our own anger and our own ego, that replace Abu Lahab with yourself and his wife with your ego, and you will see how anger can actually become a self-consuming entity, consuming you from within, and when manifested, it can end up hurting others as well. Hence, the Roman philosopher Seneca, he went as far as to describe anger as a short madness that sets us on the path of self-destruction. He says it's like a falling rock which breaks itself into pieces upon the very thing it crushes. And in his view, anger is our most hideous and wild passion and fundamentally wicked. And he argued that no plague has cost the human race more dearly. And indeed, anger can become a plague if there's no proper outlet for it. And if there is no proper outlet for anger to leave a person's soul, their body and mind, it can become catastrophic, whereby it consumes a person from within like an eternal blaze of fire, where the angrier a person gets, the more fuel they add to the blazing fire. And this also is what happens when you keep certain feelings pent up and you do not let them out via an outlet, such as sports, communications, prayers, du'as, and so on and so forth. And this pent up anger or uncontrolled anger can have a devastating impact upon you and others around you. For example, there may be times when your spouse, siblings, parents, colleagues, friends, etc., they may ask you a question innocently and you just verbally attack them unjustly for no reason. Hence, anger in these heated moments becomes the soul. And in these moments, there's no distinction between Wajee, anger, and being angry. It's all one and the same. The body is anger. My soul is anger. My actions manifest anger. And this uncontrolled anger can crash, it can surge and devour anything in its sight, including the container. In other words, including the person themselves. And this may be a reality for many of us who have acted out of character and out of their normal expected reaction. So maybe you've done something in your moment of anger out of character and you've regretted it. And even someone may say, look, that's very uncharacteristic of person X to act like this. And your anger can even turn close relationships sour. And one of the main problems of unchecked and uncontrolled anger is that it can easily become a person's habit, whereby people may start avoiding you or becoming afraid of you. People may think, I better watch what I say in front of so-and-so. And they may think, I better not do this or say anything at all, because this person may lash out violently. And indeed, in a hadith which is attributed to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, he states, a moments of patience during a moments of anger saves 1,000 moments of regret. And the message here is very substantial, regardless of if the Imam said it or not. That look at this energy that we call anger. Let's say I let it out in the heat of the moment, and from that very moment that you have let your anger out, the few moments of satisfaction you gain may lead to a lifetime of regrets. And may lead to relationships being broken forever, or even things being broken, and so on and so forth. And in these moments, the only thing you may have to remember, the fleeting moment of satisfaction, is a broken piece of furniture or the person that's never going to speak to you again. All this just for a few moments of letting your ego run wild. Just to show someone, look, I am the boss, or look at me, fear me. And Islam does have an antidote to such things. The Quranic verse I quoted at the beginning of this khutbah, it says, Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who al-kadhimin al-ghayth, who control their anger. So this verse, remember it from now and internalize it and constantly reflect upon it, such that you become an embodiment of this verse, such that this verse becomes a habit of yours, that any time a situation may arise which will anger me, you can be confident that I will control my anger. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who control it. And also we see this reflected in the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the very famous battle which has been attributed to him between him and another warrior in the battlefield. So Imam Ali in this place, he was in a position of overcoming his foe and he was about to kill him. But just before this, as you all know, the man spat on him. So what did the Imam do here? He put his dagger away and walked off. And this other man became puzzled and asked, "Why are you walking away? You were going to kill me. Instead of stabbing me once, you could have stabbed me 30, 40 times." The Imam replied, "First, I was fighting to defend Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. I was fighting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, when you spat on me, I would not have killed you for God. I was not fighting you anymore for God, but for my own sake." And we can almost see that in this pause in the battlefield from Imam Ali, he is reposturing himself, reanalyzing himself, re-evaluating and rechecking. And then he continues, he walks away and continues to fight until he's overcome his foe again. The Imam explains that if he had killed him at the moment he was spat upon, this would have been Ali killing the man for his own ego, acting out as revenge, acting out of anger, acting for himself, letting his ego and pride take hold of him. But no, it seems that even in this intense moment, he controlled his nafs and remembered and reminded himself that he only fights in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also it shows the level of such a person to be in that moment, to be that self-aware, to being spat at and controlling yourself and not acting out of selfishness and not letting your anger consume you. And it shows that the Imam has been constantly working upon himself, constantly remembering God, such that one could say that he became the embodiment of this verse in Surah 3, verse 143, which says, "There are those who donate in prosperity and in adversity. They control their anger and pardon others, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves these good doers." And in these moments of anger, you can actually trade with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In moments of anger and you restrain it, God gives you something in return. And in a hadith attributed to Imam Baqir alayhi salam, the Imam states that when someone restrains his anger despite being able to vent it, Allah will fill his heart with peace and security. But this sounds all good, that you can control one's anger and Allah will give you peace, security, and so on and so forth. But the reality of the matter is that if someone really angers you and you haven't been practicing self-restraint beforehand, before such moments occurs, it isn't magically going to come to you in the moment that, oh yeah, I'm going to suppress my anger now and I'm a saint. And no, it doesn't work like that. In moments where you're really, really angry, to have this control over your anger, over yourself, all the actions come beforehand, the meditation, the self-control, the restraint, it comes by way of self-reflection. If you make this a constant in your life, in these moments of anger, you will be the one in charge. So when you do self-reflect, think about the things which have made you angry in the past and why they have made you angry and how you have reacted in such occasions and how you could improve in the future if such an occurrence happens again. Think and reflect about what makes you angry and how you can rectify it in the future. Sometimes it might be just holding your tongue due to the personality of someone else. Sometimes it may be that you speak up and you voice your opinion. You may have to tell someone, okay, please don't do this, or don't say this to me or someone else because of the way this other person may react. They may feel upset, and so on and so forth. And I believe with this self-reflection, many solutions will appear to your problems, and it will help us learn from our past experiences. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us, allow us to control our anger, to let it manifest appropriately, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the forgiveness of all our marhumin and all our sins. I also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow peace and serenity to enter our hearts. And please can we all collectively pray for all those who are ill, especially for the father-in-law of someone working at AMI who's really ill at this time, with the loud Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صلوات. So in part one, there was more of a focus on the spiritual aspects of controlling one's anger. Here I want to touch upon the physical aspects also. So in part two, I actually want to speak about the positive side to anger once it is controlled and how it can be manifested as a helpful tool to be used. Because a controlled fire can be used to heat or cook, not just to destroy something. The same crashing wave of the sea that many people avoid is the same one that surfers seek out as a hobby, as a pastime. So once a person has mastery over their own tsunami, they can benefit from it. And you can definitely see that once a person has gained some mastery over themselves and can control their anger, it can be used in a positive way. For example, studies have shown in sports that controlled anger and aggression led to a significant boost in performance by athletes in sports such as basketball, football, baseball, and so on. And some may have experienced this themselves during a football game, maybe. A burst of anger has led them to maybe shoot harder or score a few more goals, perhaps not speaking from past experiences. Or some people may have used this controlled aggression to lift heavier weights in the gym or break personal records of performance, so on and so forth. And there is another aspect of controlling one's anger and emotion that is very, very relevant to every single one of us today. Especially when we see the news, when we hear the news, we see the news, we experience the news. Yes, we get angry when we hear about the news in Palestine, what's happening in West Bank, Ramallah, Sudan, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, and so on. The list goes on and on and on. The tyranny and injustice angers us, and rightly so. And I want to put this following Quranic verse into practice from Surah Ma'idah, verse 8. The verse states, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. In Surah Ma'idah, the Quran tells us, O believers, stand firm for Allah and bear true testimony. Do not let the hatred of a people lead you to injustice. I'dilu, be just. Why? Huwa aqrabu littaqwa. This is closer to righteousness. Wattaqullah, and be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah khabirun bima ta'malun. Why? Because surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all aware of what you do. So putting this verse into the context of the tyranny and oppression and massacre faced by the Palestinians and the people of Sudan and the people of Afghanistan and so on, the Quran is telling us to control this anger and do not let it control us, such that the hatred of a people leads us to be unjust and ourselves to become zalim. For example, if we do not channel our anger in the right way through demonstrating and boycotting and so on and so forth, we may say the news and take our anger out on family members, colleagues, elders, members of the community, and so on and so forth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning us against acting in such a manner. We are commanded to be just. I'dilu. Why? Because the Quran tells us this is closer to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and God wariness. And also the same message is reflected in Surah 16, Surah Nahl, verse 90. It says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi. Ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands justice, grace, as well as generosity to close relatives. He forbids indecency, wickedness, and aggression. He instructs you so that you may be mindful. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلوات.